Hello, everyone. My name is Roger Rugi, and I am a mentor with Pathfinder Resilience. I'm here to help you build some cognitive capital, and the lowest hanging fruit is sleep. So, we're going to continue with our sleep series here. And in this one, we're going to focus on the aspects of nutrition that can be very supportive to our sleep process. Now, the very first thing everybody asks me about is supplementation. Well, look, there are a lot of supplements out there that can help us get a good night's sleep. But I'm going to give you a caveat to this. I'm not actually going to recommend specific supplementation to you. What I'm going to say is if you would like to enhance your sleep through supplementation, my personal belief is you need to work with a professional who's an expert in it. And here's why. You want to do lab work to determine if you're deficient in certain sleep enhancing supplements that we need in our body, things like magnesium and melatonin and things like this, right? Well, you don't want to take too much of those things. So if we're deficient, wonderful. We can close that gap with a very specific and targeted supplement regime. But I really am a fan of taking the extra time to get the lab work done and work with a health pro. One of the things that we need to be very careful about is we often hear things like, well, if I take melatonin, it'll help me sleep. Yeah, for most people, that's absolutely true. And vast majority of folks are deficient in melatonin. But what if you're not? Or when do we stop? See, here's the problem. Most people say, oh, I'm going to take 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams of melatonin. What if you only need 2? Now you're overdosing yourself on a specific supplement, and too much of anything is not going to be good for your physiology. So it really need to be careful here. The other thing that can happen that most people don't realize about melatonin is if you take it for too long, your body will say, oh, there's plenty of melatonin. I don't need to produce it anymore, and it'll shut it off. Getting that restarted, really challenging. So this is why supplementation can be very, very effective, but it should only be done under the guidance of a health professional and after you've had lab work to determine where you're deficient in the minerals that make you better for sleeping, right? That's huge. Now, general nutrition principles. Here's one of the things that most people miss, and it has to do with sugar and fat. So let's get into this for just a moment. Most of us are inhaling too much sugar. It's in everything. And my goodness, I could go on and on. I could do series after series of videos just on the nutrition alone, but I'm always about the easiest thing, and that is sugar. Here's what happens to our brain. For those of you that find yourself waking up at about the 4.5, 5 hour mark during the night, and you're like, bing, awake. For many of you, it's because your brain, which is very active during your sleep period, detoxifying and doing all the things it needs to do while we're asleep, your brain needs a lot of fuel. Now, if we have had sugary meals just prior to our sleep period, that could be anything from lots of rice and pasta to desserts and things with sugar in it. Well, the brain is running off of that very efficient, high energy fuel. The problem is the brain runs out of that fuel at about the 4 hour mark after we've fallen asleep. And what happens when you wake up? The reason is your brain is literally starving. And so it wakes you up because it wants to be fed. Isn't that interesting? Here's the deal. You're not hungry. You're not starving. Your brain is. So what's a better way to fuel that for your sleep? Well, friends, reducing your sugar is going to be great for you no matter what, but here's the easy one. No sugar for your last meal. What does that look like? Well, my suggestion would be have a protein and vegetables and put some extra fat on there. Some olive oil, avocado oil, maybe you sprinkle a little bit of butter on there, something that you really love. Avocados are great, olives are great. Something that contains a pretty high level of fat. Why? Well, the brain will use that as its fuel source if it doesn't have the sugar. The brain's mostly fat. and it needs and loves fat to operate at optimal efficiency. You've got to have fat for your brain. The neurotransmitters don't work well if it doesn't have fat in there as part of your diet. So if you make that your last meal of the day and don't do any sugar whatsoever from your dinner period to your sleep period, the brain's going to use that fat for fuel instead of sugar. Fat is a much slower burning energy source. And the beauty of that is it'll carry you through your entire sleep period. So super simple, just eliminate the sugar on the last meal. And by the way, all the other side benefits that happen from less sugar in our lives, there's a bonus for you as well. The other thing that is really, really important is hydration, making sure that we're getting an ample amount of pure, clean water all throughout the day is going to help that brain detoxify at night. So nutritionally, water becomes a very important substance to help us flush the toxins out of the brain as we reach that 6.5 to 7 hour window in our sleep period. So easy ways to shift that mind that tends to wake up in the middle of the night and suddenly be wide awake, can't fall back asleep. So very often, the vast majority of people are simply run out of fuel in their brain. They had sugary food before bed, switch it to fat and a protein source. And for many of you, that's going to do the trick right there to get you into deeper, more restorative sleep. All right. I'm going to be talking about some technology ways to enhance our sleep coming up in the next series of videos. So stay tuned for that. And I'll see you at the next one.